and welcome. And this is our part 2 of our webinar, Navigating Performing Arts Admissions. So thank you for joining us, and we'll get started in a minute. My name is Ellen Valladares. I am an educational consultant with JRA Educational Consulting, and I am joined by Anne LaFemina, my colleague, who you can't see her, but she'll be manning the chat. So if you have questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat. I'm not able, as soon as I go into presentation mode, to see your questions. So I'll check in with Anne and she'll let me know. And then if we don't cover them during the webinar, we'll get to them at the end. So let's get started. So first of all, just to let you know that we are broadcasting and recording live. So this will be recorded and it will live on Facebook Live and YouTube. And I believe you might get an email with the recording of it as well. It will be up on our website as well. So again, this is part 2. Last week, Anne gave a great presentation on visual art. So I encourage you to listen to that or tell your friends about that one. If anybody that's interested in visual arts, there was a lot of valuable information in that. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on performing arts. So what are the performing arts? Of course, anything in performance. So a lot with musical theater, dance and music, singing, vocalists, so this kind of applies to everything. Now, my background is a little bit more with the performing arts, such as theater. I personally had a son that we went through this together. And as an educational consultant, I've worked with some students in theater, music, and visual arts. So a lot of this does apply. If you have specific questions with different things, please, do let us know. And we have experts in all areas. So tonight, what we're going to cover, and there is so much in this topic. So thanks for your patience as we go through. I'm going to kind of go through quickly a lot of the different aspects so I can cover as much on this broad subject as possible. And like I said, if you have questions, let us know. But we're going to go over creating your college list, some of the options and majors that you want to consider in the performing arts, the different degrees. We're going to talk about conservatory versus a college experience. And then we're going to talk about the application process, some of the materials you'll need for that. We'll talk about your performing arts resume, some headshot tips, auditions and prescreens, and go over a timeline for you. So first, a few words about the overall process. So you're a typical high school student, you're applying to college, you have a lot to do. You have a lot on your plate already, right? You're going to have to worry about making your college list, your common application, taking your SATs and ACTs, doing a resume. Not everybody does one, but most people do. You'll have to come up with all your activities. Getting letters of recommendation, writing essays, touring colleges, etc. But if you're actually applying for a performing arts major that you have to audition for, usually, you're going to find there's a lot more on top of all of that. So that's what we're here hoping to prepare you for. So you're going to have some added deadlines. You're going to have additional applications, additional essays, different letters of recommendation, because they're going to ask for a specific letter of recommendation from a theater teacher or a music teacher, a different resume that's specific to your art. And then you'll have to create pre-screens, work on your auditions, and sometimes there are extra fees involved. There can be extra fees for the auditions, for the applications, and definitely there can be some travel expenses. I mean, thankfully these days we have, a lot we can do virtually, but when it comes to auditions, there's still a lot that happens in person. So how do you juggle all of this? Well, the few tips right off of the, right off the top of our heads are, get help. So that's what we're here for. Advisors, consultants, your peers, I'm sure whatever art whatever your performing art is, whether it's dance or theater, you have peers older than you who have already been through this process, or maybe you have siblings who've already been through this process. And parents are a great resource, parents of kids who have already been through this. And of course, your theater teachers, your music teachers, your dance teachers, they know a lot about this process. Your voice teachers, I know a voice teacher who's very helpful in this process. So, just this is not something you do by yourself, which, if you're in theater, especially, it's a collaborative kind of thing. And again, this process is also very collaborative as far as getting help from others. Also, get organized, right? So, whatever that is for you, everybody's different. But if you're a person who loves spreadsheets, get those spreadsheets going. Maybe just do it on Google Docs. But there's so many different things with the deadlines that you're going to hear about. And every college is a little bit different with their requirements. So it helps to really, get organized. And if we can't stress this enough, you're going to hear me say it a million times, is to work ahead and don't procrastinate. This is really something you can't wait till the last minute on. Hopefully sometimes you don't know right away that you really want to pursue these things in college. But as soon as you get that inkling that I really, want to pursue this in college and I can't live without doing my art, for the next 4 years, then you should start working on that process. And there's a lot of research involved. And then, of course, have fun with this. And you got into this art because it's joyful and it brings you happiness and it brings joy to other people. So make this a joyful process as much as you can. So let's talk about the college list. So first, finding your best fit colleges. So again, like whether you're going into the arts or not, any student needs to look at some things about where they want to spend the next 4 years of their life, the location that you want to be in. Do you want to be in a warm climate, a cold climate? Do you want to be, I have a student now who only wants to be near a beach. I mean, some people really have specific things, or somebody wants to be in New York. So you got to think about the location, that narrows it down. What size do you like? A smaller college, a large public college? The environment, the academics, and you want to come up with a list, of course, that's balanced between those schools where your GPA and your test scores and all your stats, where it would be like a likely school, a target school, or a reach school. So you put a few in the likelies, a few in the target, and a few in the reach. Most in the likelies and the targets are the best. Then when you're considering your performing arts program, you want to look at, maybe you start, both ways. Whether you're looking for that, if you're looking for that specific BFA, and we're going to talk about these degrees, you'll start looking at that. And do these schools, what schools offer the kind of degree that I'm looking for? And do they offer the kind of style, conservatory or not? We'll talk about that. And do they require me to do auditions? And what about the faculty? I want to say something that's really important, a very big tip, is that for performing arts, this is unlike any other major, I think, that you would go into in college. You need to research the faculty, because you are going to be with a cohort and with a faculty for the next 4 years in a way that not all students are going to be, and working very closely. For instance, in music, you will have instructors that are working, specifically with you and have certain styles. If you're in theater, different schools have different programs, have different styles of theater and acting that they may, work with. And so you have to find what aligns with you and make sure that you're comfortable with the style and the faculty of that school. Very important. So here are the different kinds of degrees that you would consider in the arts. And so there's some difference. So if you're wanting to really, really focus in on your art, a Bachelor of Fine Arts or a BFA would probably be the choice. So you can do a BFA in theater and music, in a lot of different disciplines, art-wise. But your emphasis is going to be on the practical work within that, within theater, within music, within dance, or, and it's really focused on preparing you for a career in that discipline. So that's really a very specific one, usually conservatory style, but not necessarily. So Bachelor of Arts degree is not as intensely focused. There you're going to have a little bit more broader range of the courses that you can take. So you may be able to get more general education courses in there. And a lot of times you can double major with a Bachelor of Arts, and maybe you have, the Bachelor of Arts in theater, but you're also interested in business and maybe, running a theater one day. So you take another, major in business. Not easy to do all that, but you definitely have a little more flexibility with that Bachelor of Arts. And not all Bachelor of Arts programs require an audition. Some do, and a lot may not. Then there's the Bachelor of Music, which, I gotta hide this little thing. It is similar to a BFA because it's very intensely focused, but it's focused on music performance, which can be whether you're going to perform in an orchestra later, or you're going to do music education, or you're going to be a musician with musical theater, but it prepares you very intensely for that. That is when you're going for a Bachelor of Music, especially if you have an instrument that you're playing particularly, that is a very intensely focused program where you will be spending a lot of time with your instructor practicing kind of solo almost, where you could do a BFA in music as well. And that is a little bit more collaborative with some of the other disciplines, like theater and musical theater. And they would be a little bit more collaborative. But Bachelor of Music is really focused on you and your discipline. So this is pretty much just what we just said. It's kind of wrapping up that. And then I want to talk a little bit about conservatory and what that means. So when we're talking about conservatory style of learning, again, that's your BFA or BM, very intensely focused program where you're living, eating, breathing your discipline. And you'll work very much with the same cohort of students, and you'll be working on developing your skills as a performer. And everything that you learn, a lot of the things, while you probably will take gen ed courses that are required depending what kind of university or program you're at, it's not as many gen ed. So now there are conservatory style schools, and like, for instance, a Juilliard is completely a conservatory school that focuses on the different disciplines. Boston Conservatory at Berkeley, where you would, be intensely focused in a conservatory style program. So some of these are examples of that. Then there are conservatory style programs that are at a university. So that's a little bit different because, again, if it depends how what you want. Do you want to be in just a Juilliard or a place where that's just focused on art and that's for you? Or do you want to be in a bigger university but still have your intensely focused program on your art? So a good example is like the Tisch School of the Arts at NYU, New York University. So that's a great conservatory program, that's very focused on, theater, and musical theater is very big there. But you're at NYU and you're in New York, and a lot of opportunities to also experience more of the university life, to experience the college life. So Boston University College of Fine Arts, that's where my son went to school. He did the College of Fine Arts at Boston University. So also, depending on the major you choose, it's possible that you could minor or maybe double major. It's still doing conservatory is going to be very intense. I know my son went in intending to double major and all these things because he was very balanced in that he loves sciences too. So he wanted to study physics as well as theater, and he ended up with a minor in physics, but it was kind of not really possible because, as Ann and I were just discussing, it's very demanding. You'll find all these programs are going to be very demanding on your time, and you are going to, as I say, live, eat, and breathe your art. So when, that's one thing I want to bring up. So people say, well, how do I know if I want to, do that or not do that? And I think somebody said once, it's really thinking about, is it okay for me? Am I okay with going to college and not doing this for the next 4 years, or not pursuing a career in theater or music theater or dance, or, can I live without? And then if you're kind of like, oh yeah, I'll be okay, and I'd rather learn other things, and yeah, no. But if there's something in you that is so passionate about your art that you can't even picture another future, then, conservatory program is probably the right way to go for you, in a BFA. But there are other options. So say, I have so many students that have so much love for theater or even visual arts, as in Ann's webinar, that have the passion for their art, but they don't want it to be their complete college career. They want a college where they can participate in it. And there's different levels of that, right? So there's colleges that offer a BA such as University of Miami, and in the theater, where you could really get a lot of theater experience, but you're also going to get that university experience, and it's not going to be as intense as a conservatory program. And then there's other, places like University of Central Florida, where they have a great arts program that you can take advantage. So if that's you want to really research your different schools, and see, do they have kind of programs that I can participate without having to actually be taking it as a major? Can I minor in it? So those are things that you want to ask yourself. Also, when you're thinking about college, think about the location and what's around the college, right? Because if you're somebody who just wants opportunities, to go to open mic nights, or and read your poetry, or, do some acting in community theater, then make sure, what kind of community is around the college, and find out more about that. So those are a few of the different things. I hope I was clear. And do we have any questions about that?
No, we do not have any questions at this time.
Okay, great. So I will move on to the application process. Act 2. All right, so the application process. So there's a couple of different ways that, you can apply to schools, but one of the biggest ways that everybody is going to apply is through the common application. So whether you're doing arts or not, most of the colleges can be applied to through the common application. So you'll put your colleges in here. And so this is an example. I don't know how well you can see this, but we have like a mix of Boston University, Carnegie Mellon, Elon, NYU, some different ones. And so you would add your colleges in. Now, what I really want to point out to you is that Here's where we get into some of the nitty gritty in the application, where you have to be very detail oriented, and you have to start this process early, because if you're like saying, okay, they have a November 1st early action deadline, you're on October 31st, you might be already too late to be setting up auditions and submitting materials that you need to do ahead of time. So think about with these arts applications, even if you're doing an early deadline, getting it in weeks before that early deadline, because what's going to happen is on this screen, when you put in that you're going to major in, for instance, here we're on, I think this is Carnegie Mellon. Yeah. You say, I want to be in the College of Fine Arts, the School of Drama, I want to do acting. Well, now this pops up and tells you, I acknowledge that I'm required to submit a separate pre-screen or portfolio through Accepted as part of my application with the College of Fine Arts. Okay, so there's additional things they're telling you. And what the heck is this Accepted thing? So Accepted, and as Anne said, this is spelled correctly. It's this is the website if you want to check it out, because you certainly can. So Accepted is kind of the theater platform that a lot of schools use, and you can play with this before you even get to your common applications to create your profile and upload your pre-screens when you're ready, but upload other materials and learn. There's a lot of great information even on there to help you learn about the colleges that take this Accepted platform. So anyway, so once they do that, you'll have to go set up your profile within Accepted, and you'll see that you have to do all these different steps, and we're going to talk a little bit more about each one of those. This is a different example if you're applying for NYU Tisch School of the Arts. Now a thing pops up once you put that in and says, shortly after submitting your Common App, you're going to receive an email from NYU, and it's going to have your portal information, and that's where you're going to schedule your artistic review. So I hope you're getting the sense that this is why you need to be organized, and this is why you need to be ahead, because everyone's going to have a little different thing. They're going to have a portal, and this one's going to have that, and this one's going to have pre-screen here, and this one's going to have Accepted, and this one's going to have their own platform. So there's a lot of different things. So this is, this is what Boston University for music. They require an audition and portfolio, and they want you to go to their link to find out more about it. So you can see all those different things. Now there are some colleges or programs like Juilliard that have their own application. So if they're not on Common App, a lot of times you're going to find that they have their own application. You're going to have to, every college that you're applying to and every school and program, you're going to need to look at their websites very carefully to find out how they take their applications and what their specific requirements are and their deadlines. So read every website. This is an example, I think, from NYU. It can all vary by every school. So I think I'm hammering that point to you. But I want to show you this. So this is NYU Tisch, and so you can see they're even telling you, they're recommending, if you're going to apply for the November 1st deadline, we recommend you apply actually by October 15th. So you can see all these dates, are much earlier than other things, because they're taking into account that you're going to have to schedule these different artistic reviews, which come up pretty quick. So like you put in your November 1st deadline application, and then you have to schedule by November 8th. What's it say? By 9 a.m. Eastern time. I guess that's the scheduling deadline, is November 8th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you don't have a lot, and there's a lot of people trying to get in there and schedule, and there's only so many spots. Another thing on here I want to point out is that here's where fees can come in. They have an artistic review fee of $125. So yeah, sometimes there's a little extra of those things, but you can find so much out on the websites. Like this is telling you, it's going to typically last 3.5 hours, and there's a lot of, and it tells you all the information that you're going to need to bring, your photo and resume, your information about your monologues, answers to basic questions, and so on. They also have a digital submission, and I don't think I'm going to go into that a lot. I think it's just another point of, if that's something you're going to do, you're going to have to follow those instructions as well. So to recap, apply early with your applications. Check your portals and emails regularly. So once you apply, you're going to set up these portals and you're going to get emails. Always have, an email address dedicated that you're checking all the time, no matter if you're arts or not, so that you don't miss a thing that colleges are sending to you. At any point, you can start getting familiar with Common App. You can look and research whether they have their own application. You can look at Accepted and get familiar with that. And just make sure that you really get into all the details and the deadlines. So, any questions, Anne? We're good?
We are good. No questions at this time.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's talk about some of the materials that you will need. So let's talk about the performing arts resume. So when you're applying to college, and we typically help students put together what we call a high school activities resume. And I'll show you an example of what that is. But that's a little different. That covers all of your activities. So when you're applying for a performing arts program, you're going to want to create a separate resume that's dedicated to your art. So it includes everything. It may have a headshot of you, and it's, it has, what you've performed in, what roles you've played, your training, some of your physical characters, perhaps, and any awards. Just everything is only pertaining to your art discipline. And for instance, the music resume would include a repertoire list. So let me just show you a few examples. So this is a regular extracurricular resume for somebody who's just applying to college that you will need as well for all of the other things that you do on top of your performing art. And this is just, clubs and leadership, athletics, and those things. But here are a couple of examples of like an acting or musical theater resume. These are two separate resumes. And you can see usually you would have like the headshot on the resume. And for instance, over here, we can see these are lists of the shows or performances that this person has acted in, the character they were, the year they did it. So for acting resumes, a lot of times they include your physical characteristics. Also, you will have a headshot. We'll talk about that. And then this one has also included their leadership roles, their training. They had voice training and acting training. And then don't forget your workshops, any summer activities, anything that you did to improve, your abilities. And of course, any awards and recognitions. And then you could put some special skills that you have. This is a sample of a music resume. And so you can see they listed a lot of their performance ensembles, some of the awards that they've gotten, and their recitals, and then the whole repertoire list. And what I loved about this one is that he had links to some performances that were recorded on YouTube. So that's also great to think about. I think you could, well, I don't know if you can do this in an acting one, more for music and maybe dance. But to, think about this as you're going, if you're a sophomore or even a freshman, start taking quality videos and maybe making your own YouTube channel so that when it comes time, you'll have those links that you can put in your resume, which are really, handy. You don't know if they're going to look at them or not, but it's a nice added bonus to have there. Headshots. So you'll also be asked usually, and maybe you guys have done this already in some of your auditions through school, I don't know, to have a headshot. So a lot of people get like, oh God, I don't know, but the headshot. So I want to give you a couple of tips about that and some do's and don'ts. So first of all, again, follow each school's guidelines because while there are some really general requirements, each school could have some specifics, whether they might want something specifically printed on the back of there. They may request, your name to be on, who knows, or they may have a certain size or whatever. So make sure that you look at all those guidelines. So it's typically an 8x10 color photo. It captures you from mid-chest to top of the head. My son gave me the tip. It should be like 4 fingers of room above your head. And this is so important. It should look like you. So the whole purpose of the headshot is that you're handing this to the auditioner or the interviewer. And so they're like, okay, and they're connecting that you're the person in the headshot. And that when they go back through and review, they need to remember, oh yeah, that person who gave this amazing audition, I remember them. So they should be able to recognize you and remember you from the photo. So a little different. So while most headshots should just be the head, if you're a musician or a dancer, it could be more of a full body shot. A musician, you want to have your instrument in the shot, and dancers, maybe a dance pose, of course, something like that. So some of the do's and don'ts on the headshots. Again, here's something I want to point out is you don't have to spend a ton of money. So I think, should you use your iPhone? iPhones are wonderful. And as long as you can use it pretty professionally, I think, and you can deal with the lighting, that's okay. I think your best bet is kind of somebody who really has a professional camera to do this. But don't go spending hundreds, $1,000s, to get this beautiful headshot with a fancy photographer. Or don't go to the glamour shots at the mall, if that still exists. So those are some don'ts. Make sure when you do take your headshot, you want to be against like a solid background, usually kind of a light background. And a lot of times actors especially are in black. But it doesn't have to be. Oh, this is for the headshot, not for the audition. I'm sorry. No, you're not necessarily in black. You can wear anything that reflects your personality without going too crazy. You don't want to overdress or underdress, as I say. You don't want to overdo your makeup. Again, you want to look your age, and you want to use shots that are current. And you want to choose clothing that kind of represents you and the vibe that you want to create and give off, that talks about your personality. And so when you're doing it, take a lot of different shots, right? And take the serious ones and the smiling ones, and then you'll pick from those which ones, most reflect how you want to be reflected. And again, like, this is not a solo thing. To have fun with your friends that are all applying, get together, take your headshots and get feedback. And, people are going to be honest with you. Make sure you do put your name on the photos, usually on the back. But again, there might be some different directions for that. Okay. We're still good with questions, Anne?
Yes, there was a question about extending the visuals. So I think that I've done that a little bit. We don't see you right now, but hopefully that's taking up a little bit larger of the screen for anyone who's listening right now. And I will mention that if you just joined us, that the presentation is being recorded. So you'll be able to see that on the recording. So
Oh,
that's
in other words, it's kind of small to see
right now.
the things. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're getting all the explanations coming in great, so that's all good.
Okay, so that's a good thing to note, I guess, for the future. We'll have to figure that out. But yes, like you said, it's being recorded, so maybe you can go back and get a bigger screen on it.
Yeah.
Um,
I've just done that, so I think we're good. We can't see
okay.
you now because we're taking up the whole screen, but I think that's
Okay.
perfect. So we're all
Okay.
good.
Oh,
Everything's
look
going
at you. Awesome. Techie support. Thank you, Anne.
good. Okay.
Okay. So we're going to go on and talk about pre-screens. So what is a pre-screen? This is a really important first step towards your audition. So now you've decided you're definitely going for this program that requires auditions and you've put in your applications and you're signed up, but the first thing they tell you is we need a pre-screen, and you're like, what the heck is that? So it's basically what it sounds like. It's they're giving you kind of a chance to virtually show yourself, um, and then it's like, they're going to look at that and decide whether you go on to the next step. So we want to, bring the best we can for that. And this is all going to be, a video that you create. So again, there are different places that this may be through accepted that you upload that video of the pre-screen. But again, you want to make sure that, you do this pretty professionally. Pick a good place. Like maybe you can even do it at school in one of the theater, if that you have a small box theater, or someplace that is very quiet and comfortable, where you can perform your pre-screen audition without interruption. So it's usually they're going to ask you to do your monologues or your songs or dances. And again, you're going to have to look at what each school requires for that. I was one of my points here, and I do want to say that it's a very simple way for you to get eliminated. It's a big numbers game, right? And so if you don't follow the requirements, that's just an easy way for them to say, oh, that one's out. So at the very least, you have to follow all the requirements to the T. You usually have to submit these by November and December, depending on what you're doing. And they can also be more than just the monologues and the songs and dances. Um, they could ask you to also write a why this school essay, or they may ask you to talk about, why do I want to be an actor? That's a really important thing. I think Anne had some really great words for the visual artists about that. And it also goes for the performing artist, that it's really important this as you're auditioning, you are going to be asked to either write or speak about your artist purpose, so to speak, and why, why are you doing this art? Why do you want to act? And, and you have to really reflect deeply on that, and not just, I want to be famous one day, but what has moved you to want to do this art. Okay, so that's kind of quick thing about the pre-screens, and then they will kind of let you know from the pre-screens if you get to go on to the next step, which would be like a live or a virtual audition. So here's an example from the University of Michigan's School of Music, Theater, and Dance, and their requirements. They have a lot of stuff. So first, they want you to upload to your artistic profile the following. They want 2 monologue videos, and I'm not going to read every little bit, although hopefully you can see this. And usually, as most schools, they want 2 contrasting monologues from published works. And again, you're going to have to look at each school for that. Then they also want a video, a 60 to 90-second video about why acting, as we were just kind of talking about. So why do you want to pursue a career in acting? And in addition, They want you to upload a 1 to 2 page double-spaced essay that answers one of these prompts, either why Michigan, why theater at Michigan. And then finally, an optional thing, which in our world, nothing is really optional. But this may be truly optional because it's saying 1 to 3 additional videos or YouTube links of other acting you've done in the last 18 months. So you may or may not have those. If you have those, not optional. So again, that's just another reminder to start early creating those YouTube videos because they're going to come in handy. And just, think about always, having somebody maybe take those. And a lot of times, like I know in rehearsals, they'll do some professional photography or videoing. So maybe, your schools can help with that. So that's a lot about the pre-screen. And then your next step is auditions. Very exciting. So now you've made it, you got that email, okay, we want you for the audition. And so what goes on with that part of the process? This is really, to me, one of the most fun, I think for kids, it may be terrifying, but also fun parts of the whole process. And so again, these could be in person or they could be online, live online. Now that you've gotten to the audition part is usually going to be live, right? And you'll be performing usually in front of, faculty members in the school that you would be, getting into. So again, if you're doing it online, make sure you really have a quiet space where you're not going to be interrupted, because that's important. So, like any audition, you're going to basically, have your slate. Well, you will probably, just introduce yourself. I'm Ellen Valladares, and this is a monologue from blah, blah, blah. And you will go right into performing your material. Again, read. Sometimes they may have specifics about the slate that they want before your audition. And then part of this is always, I'm saying always, I think it's always a little bit of an interview. So you'll audition, that'll go pretty quickly, and you'll do your 2 monologues. And then the faculty may ask you a few more questions. Again, why this school or why this art form? And then they're going to want to know if you have questions for them, and you better be ready with some questions. So that's an important part. So it's very important that you research that program. They're going to not want to hear something about Carnegie Mellon if you're at Boston University, so make sure you've got, which school and something unique about that school. The same thing as when we're doing applications and writing those why this school essays, you've got to be prepared with what's unique and what is the fit between you and that school. And just as I'm saying this, I'm kind of coming up with an example that I can remember. Not, when my son auditioned for Boston University, where he ended up going, they definitely asked him some questions afterwards. And I know that afterwards they also asked him to kind of do some physical movements. And funny, and he just very freely, did them. I think that helped his audition. So be prepared for anything. But it's funny that he ended up getting into a lot of that movement theater and found, Boston University, that was a big part of their program, is this movement acting. And so, so knowing that ahead of time is an important thing, to know what their style is or what they, kinds of things. I want to say something, I don't know that if we covered this or not, but for music students, make sure that something you can do ahead of time and, checking out the faculty and the style is you can request, to have a lesson with the person who would be your instructor, because once you go into that school, you're going to have a certain faculty member who's going to be like your private instructor. And so they offer the chance, you just have to request for you to typically to do a private sample lesson with them, which, will give you a feel for, if this is the type of person that you could work with for that long. So very important, a good way of getting to know about that. So there's all different ways, right, that you may be asked to audition. Well, also options for the auditions, right? So you may have the option of going in person to the school. And again, every school is going to be a little different. You may have the option of doing it online. And then you may have the option of doing it outside of the school, which we're going to talk about. So I don't know, sometimes these schools on their own may travel to different places, but there's also something called the National Unified auditions. Probably if you're in theater, you've heard of this. This is an amazing event. Haven't updated these dates, and again, this has just passed for this year. But if they usually have about 25 or 26 of the colleges all gather in these cities. I know that when we participated in it, we went to Chicago, and it's kind of like if any of you have ever done, a weekend of, thespians or dance or anything where you're just surrounded by all the people and your art. It's really an amazing, amazing experience. And everybody's so supportive, and you have this opportunity to audition for schools that maybe you've arranged to audition for, but also to audition, maybe to pop in and practice your monologues with some other schools that you didn't even know existed or know that you might be interested in, and maybe get offers right there on the spot. You never know. So it's really just an amazing, fun event, if you're able, and saves a little bit of traveling to all the different schools. So here's an example of some of the schools. So Emerson is here. So Emerson, like you could have done it online, or you could have come to the school, or you could have come to Unified. So lots of different opportunities. And here's, these are just samples of some of the schools. I don't know if you can see them. University of Miami, University of Oklahoma. And these may change, but a lot of these are the same every year. Ithaca, SMU, TCU, University of Utah. So SCAD is always there. So that's Unified. So a few tips. I love this. This was some things from University of Michigan website. Again, be on time. Warm up physically and vocally before the audition, be relaxed, and wear clothing that you feel good in, that, again, that accurately represents you. Again, you want to be able to move freely. I feel like you all probably know that clothing that you wear to rehearsals, so that kind of clothing. If you're recording, again, you want to be in a neutral background. Again, choose material that you're comfortable with and is age appropriate. That's what they're saying. Yeah. Be simple, direct, and honest. They're really saying be authentic to who you are. And remember that the faculty want you to be successful. So this is one of my favorite things and I'll read it to you because I know you may not be able to read it, but this was an advice from an acting evaluator. This is from NYU's website. So when you walk into the room, we know you are excited and nervous and in the zone. We know you want us to like you, to believe you are special and worthy. We know this because we have lived this too. My first professional audition went very well. When I was through, however, intending to exit gracefully, I walked into a closet door, right smack into it. I got the part, but I spent a week reliving the horror of that moment. We know you have good and bad days, and we are right with you, hoping this is one of your good days. We are trained to see beyond what you are able to do, good day or not. No matter how you think it went, once you leave that space, it is out of your hands. You did the best you could do on that day in that moment. I love that. That's how you have to look at the auditions. So any questions about auditions?
Nope, we are all good.
We're all good. Okay. So we're doing pretty good on time. I'm almost getting there. So the finale, the curtain call, we're going to just kind of talk about the timeline and some last thoughts and tips. the timeline. So I'm going to kind of go through this. I want to tell you, and I didn't really mention, we have downloads that are available. If you go to the link on our website, I think it's scorewebinar.com. We can put that in the chat, or Anne can show you. But we are giving you a timeline, so it's spelled out there for you. So I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, but you do have it there. You also have in your downloads there some extensive list of summer programs for performing arts, and I think we have for the visual arts from Anne's program. So the summer is, we're going to talk about that, but is an important time to also work on your craft and do something. The colleges like to see that if this is something you're really dedicated to, you're also dedicating time to improve your craft over the summer. So junior year or earlier, we want to start, researching the colleges or programs and creating your balanced college list. You can start planning visits and tours. Again, like that's the best way to really know if you feel comfortable and have a fit. And when you're visiting colleges, make sure you're going to do the regular tour. Please make sure if you're in a performing art that you make arrangements in advance to go see the performing arts or meet with somebody there to speak about the program specifically. You absolutely can do that and find out more. So this is a good time too to talk to older students and art teachers and advisors. Remember, again, I can't stress enough that your theater teacher, your voice teacher, your dance teacher, they have seen hundreds of kids go through this process and they have so much wisdom to share. So tap into that and use that as much as you can. So junior year spring semester, you're going to be busy. You're going to start taking SAT tests and all that stuff. And you're going to be working on your resumes and all those things. You're going to start really working on finalizing your college list. But it's also a great time to start gathering your audition materials. Something I want to mention about your monologues, if you're doing, the theater auditions, and it's very important that you don't just, and I think we have this somewhere, is that you read a lot of plays. I know my son does that. He still does that to this day. But you don't just want to have a monologue that you haven't read the entire play about, So read the play and then you'll have the monologue and you'll have the whole context for that monologue. So it's very important that you don't just pick a monologue out of thin air. And again, we talked about, picking something that's really appropriate for your style and your age. This is a great time in spring semester and that summer to do some virtual tours or actual in-person tours. Summer before senior year, again, this is a great time, especially, this is a busy time, and this is where we're ramping up a little bit. So you're going to really start your applications, even though the Common App application doesn't open officially until August 1st. You can create your account. You can create an account now. It's just going to keep, rolling over into the next year. And it will keep most of what you put in there. You can start with your profile information and you can put some activity information. Some things you're going to have to wait because you're not going to know, like your senior classes and things, but you can definitely open that, especially start working on that the summer before. And that summer before, you really want to complete your Common App essay, right? Want to mention this again. Anne reminded me in her presentation, something really important. As you heard when we were talking about, for instance, University of Michigan, in their pre-screen, they are asking you for an essay about why acting and why this art. And that's going to be a common question that you may ask to write on. Therefore, when you're writing your Common App essay that is going in your personal statement that's going to all these colleges, you don't want to be repeating that artistic statement there. So think about writing about something else that tells us another side of you. Um, and, so think about that, because every essay is a chance to tell something new about you, and you don't want to be repeating anything. And also that goes with your letters of recommendation, right? Because your letters for Common App and for the schools. Oh, I think I just totally did not mention this. Another important point. You have to apply to the school and the program. This is a very, very important point. So for instance, Boston University, and you've got the College of Fine Arts. So you have to be admitted to both Boston University and the College of Fine Arts, two kind of separate things. You can get admitted, like College of Fine Arts could say, oh, we love him. But if you're not admitted to BU, then you're not admitted. I mean, I remember I had a music student who got into Vanderbilt School of Music, which was amazing. But we were on pins and needles waiting to see if he also got into Vanderbilt. Now, there is some, I'm sure once he was in the music school, they probably put in a little word, kind of like an athlete, maybe, yeah, we really want this kid. But it depends on the school and the program. So just remember, there is, a couple of different things going on. You have to be admitted. If you're going for a program at a larger university, you have to be admitted to that university as well. Didn't want to miss that point. So when you're doing your letters of recommendation for the university, if you're doing a university program, you still need like your academic teachers to provide letters of recommendation, and save those artistic, teachers and those letters of recommendation for ones that they might ask you for your arts applications. So you'll have to see, again, if you know that application doesn't ask for that and you're allowed to do a supplemental letter on your main application, then you can also use it there. So you'll have to see with each college what's different. Anyway, so the summer before, again, is a great time to do a summer program. It's a time to start workshopping your audition pieces, get your headshots done, and work on your both of your resumes, your extracurricular resume, and your artistic resume. Then your senior year of fall, it's really getting to it. So now you got to make sure you get those applications in on time. So organize your deadlines again, and remember to apply early. Remember that those pre-screens are going to be due in about November, December. So start, as soon as you know what the requirements are, start working on those. And because you want to take your time and really get a polished pre-screen for that. So make sure that you do that. There's some other things. Now, during senior year spring semester, this is where the auditions usually take place. So you'll be in person or at Unifieds, you'll do that. And then by, March or April, you will usually hear back from your schools and the programs. And again, you'll have to check the dates. And by May 1st, you will have to decide and commit to a university. And then, it's just going and having fun, working on your craft. I love that. It's an amazing, amazing experience. And, a wonderful education. I believe, and Anne talked about this too, that we're very passionate about the arts and passionate about all of you who want to really focus on your arts. And so it's very exciting for us, to help you and to see you grow and have your dreams come true. So creating a winning application, just a few things to remember overall, right? Your academics and your grades still matter. You're focused on your art and that's everything to you. But to get into schools, even to Juilliard, you need to have some, rigorous academics, and grades are always going to be important. So keep those up. You want to have other interests, show that you're a balanced student, that you do other things and you do community service. Find, show your leadership. So if you're a dancer, is there some kind of initiative that you can take to help young dancers? Can you mentor younger kids? Make sure to show that leadership and that community service related, to your art as well. Again, we talked about the summer program, and awards are always great. So participate as much as you can in competitions, and that's always great, to list those things, and always continue learning and growing. Everything you do to make yourself a better artist, you can put that into your application, and just be yourself. Be yourself. That's the most important thing. Nobody else is you. So I'm not going to read this whole thing, and it's probably hard to read on the screen, but I'll read a couple of these. But these were actually some tips from people who graduated from performing arts programs, and they're great. So I don't know, even if you can take a screenshot and read them later, they're really great quotes from some great kids, young adults. So the one I like here, I think, is, let's see, if you can, try to chat with current students in the program. Get to know the academic expectations, student community culture, typical opportunities and events in and around the school calendar. Don't be shy. They're more than likely eager to speak on it. So again, reach out. I tell students this all the time, really don't be shy. And especially in a performing arts program, you're going to get the truth. You're going to get the truth. So I think, you'll find some students, you can always ask the director to put you in touch with a student to talk to by Zoom or by phone, FaceTime, whatever. And, and just ask your questions, and they will give you a feel for what's the reality of the program and what you will really have, what's expected of you. I think that's really important. And on this one, I love this, that BFA programs aren't just about making you the perfect performer. You will acquire a toolbox that will make you a better communicator and thinker out in the world, and will learn how to synthesize, develop, and express your ideas. These are skills that apply to nearly everything. And so that's what I wanted to kind of end with, where Anne kind of began with this in her visual arts. But for our wonderful artists out there and our performing artists, we want to just say there's so much value in a performing arts degree that maybe people kind of don't understand all the time. But it is an amazing education where you will, again, learn to think outside of the box. These things are transferable skills to so many different careers. And I know my own son has dabbled in a lot of different careers, theater related, but he did something with copyright, at a big corporation, and theater copyrights. And now he's managing a theater, so there's so many different aspects, and, that you can bring these great, tools. It's so collaborative, and I think it really creates a lot of personal growth for everybody I know that has gone through these programs in any of these performing arts. There's so much growth. You come out a whole different new person, empowered, and through kind of, body, mind, and spirit. It's all holistic. Everything's involved there. And you become a better communicator and all these things. So it can really lead also to different careers. We find that in graduate school, law schools and medical schools, they love art students, so if you come out of there and you decide, well, maybe I'm not doing this right now, and I want to maybe I'm going to switch gears and become a lawyer. Maybe you're an entertainment lawyer. You've come out with some great skills. And so don't don't worry about that, parents. We don't want you to worry about that. But they really do help you with medical school tests and interviews. And, so many successful lawyers and doctors have arts backgrounds. And yeah. So that's about it. We want to say break a leg and enjoy the journey. I'm going to go through, we mentioned about Anne's visual arts. So if you go to scoreathetop.com webinars, you can find her, Anne's webinar. And I appreciate her being here with me tonight. And that was a wonderful webinar for anybody that's interested in that. This is one of our specials that we're working on at JRA Educational Consulting. So if you're wanting to sit with us and chat about, the GPA, your courses, and where you are and where you're going before applying to college, we can help with that. And now I wanted to see if there's any questions. And
so, Ellen, right now there are no questions. I think that's a testimony to how well you described this process in such amazing detail. I did put in the chat where to go for the downloads in this webinar. And then I also added your email address so that if anybody had any follow-up questions. But right now it looks like
perfect.
you did a great job.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad. And again, as Ann said, if anybody has any questions afterwards, you feel free to email me and I'm happy. Again, these are resources that are available to you when you go to scorewebinars.com. You'll find the downloads here. I spoke about, the summer programs and some other things there. Okay, and I think that's it. We also have other webinars if you're interested in on so many wonderful topics. So visit that again, scorewebinars.com. And we thank you for joining us. And it's been my pleasure. This was a lot of fun. I hope that you guys learned. And again, if you're a performing artist, I love it and wish you all the best and break a leg.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Good night.
Good night.